would probably tell my 20-year-old self to have focus, to be intentional. I was just living life, man, whatever happened. And so if I could go all the way back to talk to my 20-year-old self, there's a whole lot I would do differently. Number one, I would have a plan. I would have goals. I would have a mission. I would have vision. A lot of what I know now, I didn't know then.
Hi, I'm Erik Weir, and thank you for joining me today on Stuttering Your Way to Success. I'm with one of my great friends, Hasker Hudgens. We have been everywhere. You'll hear about some of the stuff we did today, like going to a Space Force launch of all things. We've had so much fun together. I've learned from him. I met him when he was a minister.
Yeah.
His big focus was outreach in inner city. And how to reach people and build relationships and community and encourage people, empower people, have them where they're facing seemingly overwhelming odds, and how do you overcome those odds? He's worked with more single mothers than anyone I know. He's worked with more people. He's probably a surrogate father to hundreds of people, and they call him daddy. How are you doing?
Doing great.
And what I want to do is have you meet somebody who I have a lot of respect for. I've learned a lot from. And he's taught me about giving back in charity. And particularly this time of year, it's really important to think about giving back. And some of us are really sad around the holiday season because our family maybe is not in the condition we wish it was in. Maybe there are people we don't even speak to. Maybe there are people that we wish spoke to us, but they don't. They're in a bad position right now. Maybe we've lost loved ones. One of the greatest things I've learned with Hasker is when you're giving of yourself to helping others, you have a lot more joy in your life, and the pain you may be experiencing can be quickly offset because you're helping somebody else. So let's talk a little more about that. Hasker, tell me about you. Who's Hasker Hudgens?
Oh, man. Erik, thanks for having me to be a part of this today, your podcast. I thank God for my relationship with Erik, and we've known each other for, I think, 15 years, right?
About 15 years, yeah.
15 great years. I've been exposed to quite a bit through my relationship with Erik. But I live here in Greenville, South Carolina, been here my entire life, which is now kind of weird because almost everybody I meet is from somewhere, some part of the country. Greenville being one of the top places in the world to live. But I've seen the transition from Greenville, where it was just small town, lots of crime, lots of poverty, to now to look around and see what is happening in Greenville. It's amazing.
If you were to meet and go back in time, 20 years younger, I'm actually 20-year-old Hasker.
20-year-old Hasker.
What would you tell? What would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Yeah, you know what I really think about that. That's a loaded question. The 20-year-old Hasker was Hasker that was rebelling and rebellious. Just left home. I think I left my father's house at 19. Got hooked up with the wrong people, running with the wrong crowd. My life was going nowhere really fast. And I didn't have any focus. So I would probably tell my 20-year-old self to have focus, to be intentional. I was just living life, man, whatever happened. And so if I could go all the way back to talk to my 20-year-old self, there's a whole lot I would do differently. Number one, I would have a plan. I would have goals. I would have a mission. I would have vision. A lot of what I know now, I didn't know then.
Powerful stuff. Well, I remember, maybe I'm going back almost 15 years ago, maybe 12 years at a minimum. And I was talking to you about helping and giving back.
Yeah.
And you said, "Why don't you come with me? What do you do?" And he goes, I was thinking, like, we're going to hang out some Thanksgiving turkeys, and sit there and here's some turkey for you. Here's some dressing for you. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the turkey. It wasn't that at all. His idea of giving back is picking up trash. So we went in this neighborhood that was not particular. It was in an impoverished area. A lot of, I guess, Section 8 housing, government subsidized housing. A lot of single families. It was a very interesting area. Go there, and I start picking up trash.
Right.
And he had me there, and I'm like, how am I going to do this? He's like, we do it all day. And then we talk to people. They come up and talk to you, and that's exactly what happened. He'll come up and talk, and I'm there, and I'm not trying to necessarily try to engage anybody, but they come and, why are you picking up trash in my yard? Well, want to give back, make the area beautiful. And I'm like, well, why do you do that? Why do you do it every week? He said, it's consistency. And then I come back and I'll provide hamburgers, or we'll do a cookout, or have a food truck. And I learned about. So tell me more about why you started to do that. What made you choose, the area of town you did, and then maybe some stories of some lives that were impacted that you may have had some amount of a hand in.
Yeah, my whole why. Giving back was it always goes back to the 20-year-old, the 19-year-old Hasker, who had really just messed up his life really fast. Ended up drug addiction, and I'm telling you, my life was really, really tore up, messed up. We could spend an hour with me telling you how bad it was. But at 26 years old, I discovered the Lord, or the Lord discovered me. He already knew me, but I discovered Christ. Invited Christ into my life, started getting my life together. I got to a place where I could see clearly, I could hear clearly. And the first thing I said to God, Erik, that because of what you have done with me, cleaning me up, fixing this mess that I made real quick, I'm going to spend my life giving back to you. So Erik, as I started reading the scriptures in the Bible, I started seeing how Jesus moved around, and how he was in the marketplace, and how he went to villages, how he healed the sick, and all the things that he was doing, and how he was feeding the poor, the 5,000, the 4,000, the 7,000. And I realized that was what I was supposed to be doing. I was supposed to be helping people. And the more people, I realized the more people that I helped, the more people would help me. And so I started out just passing out tracts, just telling people about salvation. That wasn't enough. Then I realized, as I read scriptures, that the greatest thing I read what Jesus had. He heard the thoughts, he heard the argument the disciples was having about who's the greatest in the kingdom. And then he said, the one that can become servant to all. So I started studying these scriptures about servanthood, being a servant. I realized in order to go high, you had to go low. In order to be great, you had to be least. It's just the opposite of what we're taught.
Yeah, right.
To be a great man, you got to be great. To be great, you got to be least. So I started doing things to serve the poor community. And I remember getting a call from you, and you say, Hasker, I want to teach my boys. My boys, they got it really good, and they don't really know they have it good. You say, put something together for my boys, and that's where we did the trash.
That's true.
The trash pickup, and that was a great day. We did this toy drive, and you were a big part of it. And I remember you and I, we were standing in front of this building. There were hundreds of people lined up to receive a toy. It was the day after Christmas, I believe it was.
That's right, yeah.
And it was last minute. Man. People weren't able to get toys for their children. You and I were standing there, and you said to me, and I wonder if you still believe this. And I want to hear your thoughts on it. You said, Hasker, you want me to tell you the reason most of those people are standing in that line? You remember saying that to me?
I do.
And I said, no, tell me why. And you said it's because many of them didn't get their education. And I tell you, I thought about that 100 times. When I see people struggling in life, when I see people in poverty, I think I still remember you saying those words to me, and I believe there's a lot of truth to that. I don't know if it's true for everything, but
sure.
You still believe that, right?
I do. And I would say I probably have even had that move even further to maybe articulate it better. So education is part of it, but it's really awareness and self-identification, knowing who you are, what are your abilities, and then how can you educate yourself to take advantage of your abilities. And I was talking to some young people at Furman today, and they're graduating, and some of them are excited about it, and they're concerned there's a recession going on.
Right.
There's I'm on the other side saying I can't find good people to work for me. Right? They're thinking I'm afraid I can't get a job, and I'm gonna be fine.
Wow.
But I said what puts food on the table is the ability to solve problems.
That's good. That's good.
That's the education.
That's good.
The ability to solve problems. So if I have the ability to solve a problem of collecting leaves in someone's front yard, and there's someone that has leaves that doesn't want to spend their time doing it, I can solve that problem.
That's really good.
Something.
That's really good.
I can clean a window. Okay. I can wash a car. Those are problems I can solve with no education, just a little bit of getting started. But if I can solve a more complicated problem, I can have a bigger wage.
Wow.
And if I can solve an even more complicated problem still, I can have whatever I want. So if I can solve a problem that saves a man $10 million, to get paid $1 million for that would be very reasonable. I'll give you 10% of my savings, sure. So I've gone from trying to encourage people to learn how to be problem solvers. Know yourself, take a risk, put yourself in uncomfortable situations, and persevere.
That's really good. One of the best paying jobs I've ever had was a job where the person hired me because they said I solved the problem for them.
Really? How about that? Yeah, there you go. That's it. So, Hasker, when I think of you, I think of giving back. I think of selflessness. I think of humility. And the book that I wrote, the 5 F's, was faith, family, fitness, finances, friends. And the concept is that, there are 5 key areas of life. Your faith or your belief system kind of informs your decisions on everything, really. Whether you're a religious person or not a religious person, it's not that. You still have a belief, right?
Right.
So, and we talk about as if I ignore my health to pursue my wealth, someday I'll spend my wealth to get back my health, right? And the idea is they're all 5 plates and they're all 5 wheels. And I kind of do is I'll draw something like this is your wheel, right? So let's say in belief or faith you're a 4, and then in health you're a 5, and then in finances you're a 2, and in friends you're a 10, right? And then family you're a 3. Yeah. Well, that's not a very round wheel, right? Wheels not going to roll too well.
Right.
So how do you get balance of life? So Hasker, I've learned a lot from you. So in the faith area and giving back, would you kind of talk to us a little bit about what if I'm a person that I want to grow in faith? I'm curious. You said you started reading the Word. How do you do that? How do you start? Where do I find a Bible? What impacted you?
Yeah. First thing for me was, and this is something you and I have talked about over the years, is seeking out mentors. Seeking out mentors, someone who's strong in an area that you're weak. Mm-hmm. The first conversation you and I had, maybe the second, you said to me, if you'll teach me spiritual things, I'll teach you financial things. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up picking up trash. It's something spiritual,
That's it.
Feeding the poor.
Right.
But I remember all those days sitting in front of Starbucks with you. Mm-hmm. I remember for that first year, bringing you all my receipts. Mm-hmm. You wanted to see where I was spending my money.
That's right.
So you were teaching me financial things, how to manage your money. And so I've learned, even out of that experience, to have different mentors in my life. If I wanted my marriage to be strong, I needed to find someone who can mentor me in marriage.
That's powerful. Yeah.
If I wanted my health to be good, I needed to get a trainer that can help me be physically strong. So when I look at all those 5 F's, I've always tried to have a mentor in each one of those areas.
That's good. That's solid. That's great. So in your view, I've heard this said, and I have my belief on it, but mentorship is like an accelerator.
Yes.
You can go faster.
Yes.
And if you ask somebody to mentor you or spend time with you, how often do they say no?
Right.
Do they say no to you, or do they say yes usually, or?
I've learned if you pursue a person, to mentor you, then they'll say yes. There need to be a level of pursuit. Mm-hmm. And I find a lot of people ask me to mentor them, and then there's that. In the church world, they ask you to be their spiritual leader, spiritual fathers, and all of that. But it's the people that that have pursued me, I'll give myself to. Because if a person pursues me, eventually I'll let them catch me, and then I know that they're going to take the wisdom, the advice, the experience that I have, and they're going to put it to use. I remember in the beginning years, people, hey, let me buy you dinner. I want to pick your brains. And you meet with them a year later, they did nothing with all of that information.
That's true. That's true.
So I learned not to give myself to people too fast, because if you give yourself to people too quickly, they're probably not going to take that information and do anything with it, if that makes sense.
No, totally. Well, you called me earlier this week. You said, Eric, I'm going to go to Perry Prison, correctional, maximum security prison. This is like, and I've never been to prison, so Hasker gets me started like right at the top. These are like the lifers are here.
We're not going to the 1 year.
No, we're not going to the misdemeanor, the light school. There's going to be 3 pat downs before you go in there,
Listen, once you hear that, those bars close, man, it's a different world.
Yeah, they're there. We're in, right? So, and you're going to have me there, come there and speak, right? You've spoken many times. What have you learned yourself in speaking to prisoners?
Yes. I'm going to tell you a couple of things on that. One of the guards told me one time, and this is a guy, he's retired now. His name is Elvis. He's a friend of mine. I remember being in a prison speaking to the men one time, and as I was leaving, he said to me, everybody is 5 seconds or 5 minutes from being behind these bars. You're going to just make one bad decision, and you can be in prison for 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, 17-year-old guys, 18-year-old guys in prison for life.
Yeah.
One bad decision. You got in the car with the wrong person. But what I've learned is something that people need to learn before they get in prison, or before they lose their family, before they lose everything. People behind prison bars, they're like sponges. When we bring the gospel, when we bring seminars, they eat it up. They're like sponges. And I asked myself the question, why could you have not been that way before you made a wrong decision? If you'd have listened to the right people, maybe if you'd have went to church, maybe if you'd have surrounded yourself with great advisors, great friends, your life would not have taken such a turn. But why do people have to hit rock bottom before they wake up? I know for me, I said earlier that I had a drug addiction, but I had to hit rock bottom before I came to my senses. The Bible talks about the prodigal son. He came from wealth. He came from a great family, came from everything, a good home. And he ended up in this eating with the pigs.
Yeah.
But he had to hit rock bottom before his eyes opened, before he woke up. The sad thing is a lot of people, they don't make it back. They don't make it back home. They don't make it back to church because they made a bad decision. I think decisions, a lot of life really comes down to having a good life, having a successful life comes down to the decisions we make, the people we surround ourselves with, the people we hang out with. And someone told me, I can always tell where your life is going by the people that you're hanging around with. That's why I hang around people like you. The people you hang around with is kind of prophetic in where you're going to be the next 5 or 10 years. So if you're hanging around, I don't like to call people losers, but guess what? That is prophecy of what your life is going to be. You're going to be a loser. If you're hanging around winners, you're going to be a winner.
Yeah, I've heard it said that this way: you'll be the same person today in 10 years, except for the people you hang around and the books you read.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe even the books you listen to on tape. So you'll be the same person except for those exceptions.
That's good. That's good.
So how, knowing that, and being in ministry and being in working in an impoverished area in Keene, are there common barriers that people have, like unforgiveness or anger or resentment, or is there some emotion that people have that tends to limit them? And then is there an answer for that?
Yeah, you just named, I think, 3 or 4 of them. Forgiveness is really deep. I find people whose life is somewhat stuck. They can't move forward because they can't forgive. There's a father who was not in their life. They're stuck. I've even heard stories where people literally had to go to the cemetery to forgive a loved one in order to move forward in life. And so those are really deep hurts, really deep barriers that will hinder us. And so life is a choice. We have to make the right choices. We have to make the choices to forgive. If your life is, I'm telling you, your life is in a bad place, in order to get out of that situation, that bad place, whatever it is, you got to make the right choices. You got to make some changes. And we all face different obstacles that will hinder us from moving forward in life. And we make the choice. I can be mad at a dad I never met, or a wife that walked out on me and left me with the children. I had that happen. I was a single father, had to raise children. I could have let something like that tell me never trust a woman again. And I never would have found true love. I never would have got married again. So education, I mean, you talk about education. Maybe you wake up at 30 years old and you realize, you know what? I could be better off if I had gotten my education. At 30 years old, it's not too late to pursue education. And so you name it, it comes down to choices, Eric.
Yeah. I'm 55 now, and I'm finishing my master's. And I'm doing it because it's something I want to do, and I want to teach. I want to teach in colleges and give back. And I thought for me to have that credential would be helpful. I don't know that it's going to impact my earnings, it's going to impact things like that, but it's been fun, and I've learned a lot. I've learned how to present, how to break things down, and so it's been a fantastic experience of networking, expanding your horizon. And in my class, I'm talking to people, and they're all different, from like a CEO to somebody just starting out, to somebody who's worried about student debt, to somebody else who's in an apartment, to somebody else who is number 5 at Google. I've had that kind of crazy change, but I've learned a ton. So you're saying that is really true. And I think that the whole point of the Study Your Way to Success podcast is you expect setbacks, you expect disappointment. Things are going to set you down. You're going to have battles of I feel depressed, or feeling, how do you get out of it, right?
Right.
You try to help others, or you try to how do you get out of that? So Hasker, have you ever been to the point where you're like, you felt like throwing in the towel?
Oh, yeah.
I'm out. I'm done, right? And you didn't. And why not? And then what did you do to climb out of the hole?
Yeah, it's a good point. And I happen to think that almost everybody faces those crossroads in life where you feel like giving up. I felt like, I'm telling you, that's been times I felt like getting on a Greyhound bus and just buying a one-way ticket and going to LA somewhere and starting over. But you know what? That solves nothing. I hear people say, you know what? I'm just going to pack up and leave Greenville, and I'm going to move to Atlanta. Well, if you don't fix your problems, you're gonna be that same person in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And so we have days where we want to throw in the towel, we want to give up.
Right.
And then we wake up tomorrow. And if you are a true leader, or you're a true winner, you'll wake up tomorrow and you'll do what is necessary in order to move your life forward. For me, also, it's been my family. One of the F's is family. When I wanted to quit, I could not quit because I couldn't quit on my family.
Right.
If it was just me, I could quit. But when I look at my daughters and I look at my son, now grandchildren, for me to quit now, I quit on all of them. And then I quit on the community, and I quit on my church family. So I just can't quit,
Right.
For some people, it's easy to quit.
Right.
But then for others, I think, who was it? Peter.
Yeah.
Peter wanted to quit. And then when he decided he wanted to quit, the other disciples who were on the boat, they decided to quit too.
Right.
So nobody quits alone, Eric,
That's
and
true.
So an old man told me one time, I just went through a divorce, and I was driving a bus with a bunch of children on the bus. Because for me, my healing comes from helping other people. Anytime I've ever been wounded or hurt, for me to heal quickly is to give myself to serving, to helping other people. And I remember driving this bus, and this old man, he wanted to ride with me on the bus to see what I was doing. He was a bishop of this huge organization, IPHC. So he was on the bus, and he knew my situation. And he said to me, he said, quitting is not an option. You know, we're riding, the kids screaming and all, and he just whispered those words to me. Quitting is not an option. So when you remove quitting, then you have no other choice but to move forward. And so it's like sports. When we played sports back in the days, you get knocked down, you get dirty, you get up, you wipe the dust off, and get back in the game.
Absolutely.
And so life is somewhat that way. You will get knocked down, and you get back up, you wipe the dust off, get back in the game. But I've learned one thing, Eric, that no matter what happens to me, no matter if I get knocked down or if I fall, God will pick me back up. And he always have. You know, he always have. He's always rescued me. He's always reset my life. So I don't fear. I don't fear losing. I don't fear failure. I don't fear bad things happening to me.
Right. I read a poem one time, and I'm not going to recite it, but it was really interesting. It said, God, many times in my life I look back and I see two sets of footprints in the sand. And I was walking close to you, and I knew you were there.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. But the times I was in the most pain. I was hurting. I wanted to quit. There was only one set of footprints. Why did you leave me? And God said, those are my footprints. I was carried.
That is powerful. And that's one of my favorite poems.
Yeah, and that's true. And the idea is, and when I talk to people about setbacks and pain, or their bankruptcy or divorce, or facing all the different things that can happen in life, life is going to give you disappointment.
It will,
and life is going to give you pain. What I've learned in talking to so many people like yourself and others is depression and gratitude cannot exist at the same time.
That's good.
So when I'm in pain, there's something I can be grateful for. And when you have a setback, and you feel like quitting, how do you fall forward? So Hasker, how do you fall forward? You fall forward instead of fall back. Yeah,
that's a good point, Eric. And I really probably need to meditate on that question to give the proper answer. But it for me, it still goes back to quitting is not an option. I removed the bridge. I removed the bridge that I cannot turn around and go back across that bridge. When I remember when I came to know Christ, and the only friends I had were people in the streets, drug dealers, and you name it, hustlers. And the first thing I remember the Lord telling me was, you got to tear down that bridge. You got to burn that bridge. Wow. So why do I have to burn that bridge? So you can never go back across it. So, so when life got hard, I knew my street friends would be there for me.
Right.
But they were part of my destruction.
Right.
So that bridge was down. So I had no choice but to move forward. I had to pick myself up. I had to, there were days I didn't want to open my Bible. There's many days I didn't have it in me to pray, So we get spiritual sometimes when we say, pray about it,
Right.
And there has been times when I didn't have it in me to pray. I thank God I had people praying for me, So part of the answer is who you surround yourself with. You surround yourself with people that would encourage you, people that will lift you up in prayer. But then a relationship that you and I have had, we've always been able to speak truth to each other.
Right.
So people that you give permission to speak truth to you, everybody don't have that permission.
Right.
But there are certain people you give permission to say, "Hey, man, you're messing up," or they'll compliment you. So for me, it's a combination of all of that. The relationship that you're in, the relationship you have with the Lord, the relationship you have with your wife, the relationship you have with your children, having friends. One of the F's that you have on that page, having friends. Bible says it's not good that man be alone.
Right.
People think marriage when you hear that, but you need friends in your life, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're social beings, and in all those areas, there's trouble.
Yes.
There's just trouble, right? Because people are going to let you down, right? Friendships have bumps, right? Marriages have bumps. Being single has bumps.
Yes.
It's just there's just going to be struggle in life, and I think going back to that and being vulnerable here. I'm hearing you say be vulnerable. Here to say surround yourself with people that can be helpful to you, be helpful to them.
Right.
You can learn from, study, read. And it sounds like you're a man of prayer, and you read your Bible. How often do you have a chance to pray or read your Bible?
Well, so as part of my profession, I have to do it daily as part of my profession, because like your profession, you point the finger, you're solving problems. I do as well, but it's I'm a pastor, I'm a minister, and so I have to feed the flock. I have to get the word. I have to know the word. I have to be prayed up. I have to be able to pray for people. In so many ways, I have to build myself up. One of the things I like doing is going on the mission field, going to foreign countries and being a missionary. And there's a lot of demonic activities when you go overseas. That's demonic activities in America, but it can be heavier when you go overseas, and you really just have to be built up. And part of building ourselves up, at least for me, is, man, if I don't pray, Erik, I get empty. And when I get empty, it's not good. So I have to, it's like a filling station where I have to gas up. I have to pray to be filled.
That's good.
I have to read the word in order to be filled. So it's not just one. I know people that pray, but they don't read the word. I know people that read the word, but they don't pray. People that read the word, but they don't serve. Right. And you have to, I think it's a combination of giving back. It's a combination of putting your hands to something, whether it be picking up trash or helping an old lady across the street. You have to have a balanced life.
Right.
And that's what I seek.
Now, if somebody said, I wanted to start to learn and to do that, is there a reading program you'd recommend to somebody? Is it do this, get started, where it's simple, I could do it daily, easy to figure out? Does anything like that exist?
Well, I'll tell you, old Deacon, I'm sure it is. And nowadays you can Google to get answers to those questions, anything. But I remember I asked that question when I came to the Lord. And that's been 35 years now, 36 years now. There was a deacon in the church, and I asked him, I said, well, what do I do next? I accepted Christ Sunday morning. Now what do I do? So there's a lot of those questions. What do I do next? And I remember he said, well, read your Bible. And there's also, where do I start? He said, well, start in the New Testament. And that was great advice, because there's so many people try to start in the Old Testament, and the Old Testament is a lot about history. But he said, learn about Jesus first, and then you learn the rest of the Bible. To me, that was great advice, because as I discovered the life of Jesus, it kind of stirred up a hunger in me to know more. Well, we get so deep, we want to go to Revelations, we want to go to, you're reading about people you can't even pronounce their names. Right. And you're reading about history that doesn't add up to you. And so if you just learn about Jesus, that's going to be the answer. Jesus is the answer to all of our problems, all of our questions. He's the answer. So you spend that first year or those first several months just studying the life of Jesus. It'll take you a long ways. It really will advance your life.
That's great. Well, thank you for joining me today on Studying Your Way to Success. It's great to have you here. In closing, is there any one thing you want to give people a thought to think about? Maybe consider this as they move forward?
Well, and I don't say this just because I'm sitting here, but I would encourage the listeners, the readers, to purchase your book. That your book is one of the greatest books I've read this year. And I plan on reading that book again, but I'll tell you, if you will purchase that book and if you're not pleased, I will refund you myself. I will refund you for that book. It's what I love about your book is that you give away the secrets. And you got to know where I'm coming from. And some of you that are listening, you know what I'm talking about. I go to conferences, I sit down with people, I go to seminars, people tell me, they'll tell us, hey, look what I've grown, look what I've built, and they never tell you the how. In your book, you give the how to. That's very rare.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Very rare that people give you the how to. So purchase that book.
Space Force. Yeah, here, cheers. So Hasker, I gave him a call maybe a week before rocket launch. I had a friend of mine, a new friend I just met who runs Space Force. He's like, hey, you want to go to rocket launch? And I'm like, yeah, how many people can I bring? He told me, and I'm like, backing up the truck, you want to go? I said, Hasker, you want to go to watch a rocket launch? He goes, yeah. So last minute, I got some of my kids to come. And Hasker came. We flew out to Los Angeles and drove north a little bit. And we watched a rocket launch. It's so amazing to watch a rocket, just the power of it, and just you see it go up, and you see just the brightest flame under them. And remember, you feel like you could hear it and kind of feel a wave, but it wasn't right away. It took a minute. So, what was that like to you to go and watch a rocket launch? When Elon Musk rockets go up in the air, what was that like?
How do you describe that? It's like a kid who's going to his first Christmas parade. You know, he said it was like a week. It was like 2 days. He said, hey, do you want to see this? And it was one of these opportunities, once in a lifetime opportunities. There was no way I was going to tell you no. Yeah. And so thank you for taking me. It was one of the greatest experiences to see a rocket. I'm fascinated by airplanes. You know, that's one of my, I just love to see planes go up and come down, but you took it to another level. So thank you.
It was so fun, and also you have an appreciation for what Musk has done.
Yeah.
It was routine now where they're launching rockets every couple of weeks and very, very efficient. And what's so neat is part of the rocket actually comes back and auto lands, you know, in the ocean or it lands, you know, on the, you know, nearby where they took off so they can reuse it. So it was fantastic. Well, again, it was great being with you,
you know,
and going through California, and of course, getting this super cool Space Force.
Yes, sir.
And Hasker, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, how would they find you?
You can look me up by the name of my church, the church that I pastor, the Equipping Center. You can Google me. You know, I have a website. I wrote a book. You know, hey, check out my book, I Am Evangelism. It's when I hear it's a great book. And so there's ways to look me up. And if you know Erik, you can reach me through Erik. But I'm available. And I'd love to sit down and talk with you.
Great. Well, thank you, Hasker. It's great to have you on today.
Well, man, it's always good to be with you, Erik.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today on Stuttering Your Way to Success. And our guest, as you remember, was Hasker Hudgens. Hasker, thanks for coming on. I always learn so much from you about giving, about charity, about learning, overcoming obstacles, setbacks, getting tools to grow. And the purpose of this show is to give you just that encouragement, to give you focus, to give you actionable ideas and tools you can use today to make your life better and to have more success.